Hi, I'm Oli France, the founder of wildest and professional expedition leader. Through my company wildest, I guide teams to the summit of Kilimanjaro and have achieved a 97% summit success rate. One critically important part of the whole picture of climbing Kilimanjaro is learning how to improve our chances of dealing with the altitude. Today, as part of my series of videos on Kilimanjaro, and make sure you subscribe to my channel so that you can see them all to really give you a full picture, I'm going to be diving deep into altitude, what it is, how we can adapt to it, and the things that we can do on the expedition to really maximise our chances of reaching the roof of Africa. So, let's dive in. In the world of mountaineering, high altitude is considered as anything above 2,500 metres. Kilimanjaro, being the highest mountain in Africa, is almost 6,000 metres and around 19,000 feet, so it's well into the zone where we could expect to feel the effects of the altitude. And what does this mean? What does this all mean if this is totally new to us? So when we're up at high altitude, because there is far less air pressure, it means that the available oxygen for each breath is far lower for us. And so actually on the summit of Kilimanjaro, the oxygen that we're taking into our lungs is only around 50% of the levels found at sea level. So this is a huge difference, and this of course means that our bodies need to very quickly adapt to being at that reduced oxygen atmosphere up at higher elevations. So this brings me to altitude sickness, and this is what our bodies can experience when we are trekking at higher elevations. Altitude sickness, it's a spectrum. And what we want to do is stay as far down that spectrum as possibly can. On that spectrum, the more basic or milder symptoms would include mild headaches, a bit of nausea, a bit of appetite loss, a bit of sleep loss. We may feel slightly dizzy at times. If we're on the far end of the spectrum, then there would be really crushing headaches. That would be total lack of sleep, total loss of appetite, vomiting, dizziness, memory loss, things like that. And of course, what we absolutely want to do is avoid getting to that extent. And the good news is there are many things that we can do to really help ourselves, help our chances. I'm going to ask you to watch right to the end of this video, because if you want to maximise your chances of reaching the summit, it's about stacking the odds in our favour by doing lots of small things along the way. Each component is as important as the other. There is one very important bit at the end which I'm also going to discuss in some detail, so make sure you hang around for that. First, what can we do before the expedition? There's lots of things once we're on expedition that we can be doing, but just to get a kickstart, just to get ahead before we even step foot on the mountain, what can we do? So what we want to do, of course, is to make sure that we're well trained, our bodies are well conditioned for the mountain. And I'm going to do a video more in detail on training and what we can do to achieve that. But essentially, what we want to do is build up a good endurance base, have good cardiovascular fitness, certainly have spent some times on the hills, on the mountains, walking for long periods of time with a heavy rucksack, and getting used to going up and down hills, getting used to using our legs in that way. And it is very different to walking on the flat or running or cycling. So I would advise, if you can only do one thing, go and find some hills, or even a big staircase if you live in an apartment block, get yourself up and down there, use that as training, and use of course the expedition as your motivator. Although there haven't been any conclusive scientific experiments, as far as I'm aware, and I have looked into this, that link fitness with adaptation to altitude, i.e. you could be the fittest person on earth and you could still get affected by the altitude. What being fit does help us with, it helps our recovery time after each day's trekking, it helps us feel geared up for this multi-day trek. So having that fitness in our system, not only is it going to improve our recovery chances, but it's also going to make the whole experience far more enjoyable. So thinking about our fitness, taking our fitness seriously, and this is a real challenge, it's not to be underestimated. That is going to stand us in the best possible stead once we arrive at the mountain. As we move into the planning stages and start thinking about how many days to do this Kilimanjaro trek, this is another important factor in our eventual summit success chances. And as you're scouring the internet looking for your Kilimanjaro trip, and a reminder once again, we do offer them. I run these expeditions, I guide groups personally, so if you'd like to join me, make sure you hit the link. How many days? That's the big question. You can get 5 day, 6 day, 7 day, 8 day, 9 day treks. They're all, valid options, but this is something that you really need to think carefully about. The longer you spend on the mountain, the better your chances of reaching the summit will be. Why is that? The body takes time to adapt to the altitude. And so by making more gradual progress up the mountain, by taking it slowly, pole and Swahili, as you'll hear the guides telling us, that is really, really beneficial. So if you're thinking about doing a 5-6 day option, a word of warning, your chances will be reduced because you're not giving your body as much time to adapt. And this is, if you look at the statistics of people reaching the summit, the longer you spend on the mountain, the better those odds are. We at Wild Edge, we offer a 7-day trek on the Maximise route typically, and this has a really nice elevation profile. You're going up to 4,600 meters on day 3, back down around 4,000 meters for the next couple of days before making the gradual summit push. And this is really going to help our bodies adapt. Some days, the 5 or 6 day options, they are pushing us to the limits, and that is going to decrease our chances ultimately. So think very carefully about how long to spend on the mountain. Yes, the shorter trips are cheaper, but you're probably only going to do this once, so you want to do it right. So now we're on the mountain. What can we do to maximize our chances? First, hydration. This is super important when it comes to getting used to the altitude and keeping our bodies in good condition. So generally we want to be drinking around 3 to 4 litres of water every single day on the mountain, if not more, at a minimum. We can also improve our hydration by using salts such as diurolite or electrolytes, just to keep our salts and our electrolytes topped up, as well as the water consumption. So make sure you're drinking plenty of water. One top tip is to drink about 1 litre in the morning before you even set off on each day's trekking. That's going to sort of get some energy into the tank, get some hydration in before we even set off. Of course, another thing is thinking about alcohol and caffeine. Alcohol, I would not advise taking that on Kilimanjaro whatsoever. That is going to decrease your chances of staying hydrated, of adapting to the altitude. Likewise, caffeine. Caffeine, you've got to be careful of. Caffeine is a diuretic. That means you're going to pee out more than is staying in your system. So you are going to become dehydrated if you're drinking lots of coffee, lots of strong tea, that sort of thing. So think about your caffeine consumption. Also need to think about that in relation to your sleep at night, if it affects you. And then staying on top of your hydration. That is going to give you a good kickstart. Next, I want to talk about taking it slow. And this is one of my biggest pieces of advice. Luckily, when you're traveling with Wild Edge, you're going to be with some excellent guides who are really going to set the perfect pace for getting you up the mountain. And that pace is described once again as slowly, slowly. And sometimes people won't quite believe just how slowly you are walking up this mountain. On most days you'd be averaging around 1 mile an hour. On the summit day you'd be averaging around half a mile an hour, if not less. So you're really walking at a snail's pace. And this of course is giving us a chance to fill our lungs, to breathe properly, for our bodies to adapt. What we need to be careful of, and actually even if we're very fit, is not to race ahead, to race on up the mountain, because that's where we're gonna run out of breath, we're gonna exhaust ourselves. We need to avoid overexerting ourselves at all times, taking it slowly. Remember, this is a marathon, not a sprint. This is a multi-day, high altitude trek, and so we need to take it easy, take it slow, allow ourselves to rest, and really focus on our sleep at night as well. Taking it slow is one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give you. Next, and this is going to help with our hydration too, is staying protected from the sun. Once we're up at high altitude, up above 3,000-4,000 meters, the intensity of the sun is extreme. The UV rating is extreme, and so that means that we really need to stay protected from the sun, and there's a few ways we can do that. First of all, having a peak or wide-brimmed hat, I would 100% advise that. Keep the sun off your head. Also wearing long sleeves. You can also get UV rated base layers. They're a really good idea. And of course a very high factor of sun cream. So generally I would recommend factor 50 plus. This is no place to go and get a suntan. Stay protected from the sun. Also you may want to think about UV blocking sunglasses and protect your eyes as well. Sun is exceptionally powerful there, and I've seen people with shocking burns on Kilimanjaro when they've not protected themselves from the sun. So protect yourself from the sun. You will not get dehydrated, you will not get sunstroke, you will not get these complications that may ultimately stop your expedition completely. Think very, very carefully about this one. So we arrived fit on the expedition, ready for the challenge. We're staying hydrated, we're staying protected from the sun, we're avoiding alcohol and excessive caffeine use, and we are walking slowly. Already, we're really maximising our chances. What next? One critically important thing to keep in mind is to make use of the expedition leader, the local guides that you have with you. If you feel the effects of the altitude, you need to speak to somebody. Please do not keep it to yourself. I tell this to my groups all the time. Do not keep these problems to yourself. If you've got a mild headache, if you're feeling nauseous, if you're not sleeping properly, let somebody know. That's when we can deal with it. And when you're on a mountain in a remote area, you want to deal with these problems fast. You do not want them to build up. Once they build up, and you can get to very dangerous places if you're pushing things too far with altitude sickness. It can become fatal in the very, very worst case scenario. And of course we want to stay well away from that. By communicating openly with your guides and your expedition leader, you are going to make sure that you can address those issues and continue on with your trek. It doesn't mean that you're going to be turned around and sent back down the mountain. It means we can deal with the problem and move on. So the final thing I want to talk about is a question I get asked all the time, and that is there any medication that you can take to help increase your chances of dealing with the altitude? The answer is yes. There is a drug called Diamox. Diamox is traditionally used for seizures and treating certain heart diseases. However, it also has become known and used in the high altitude world as a drug which improves your body's chances of dealing with the symptoms of altitude sickness. What's important to note is, first of all, Diamox is a prescription medicine. So I'm not here to tell you to go and get this prescription medicine. If you want to get it, go and see a doctor, go and speak to a doctor. In my anecdotal experience, what I have found is that those who take Diamox tend to suffer less badly with headaches, with nausea, with sleep loss. It's not a cure-all, however, and people still do suffer these symptoms. It does not mean taking Diamox that you're not going to suffer from altitude sickness. But generally, in my experience, and it's commonly seen that taking Diamox will improve your body's chances of adapting to the altitude and feeling those symptoms slightly less. What's really important to remember though is that Diamox is just one part of the picture. So if you arrive at Kilimanjaro unfit, unhydrated, unprotected from the sun, take a few Diamox and expect to get to the top, please think again. Think very carefully about every component of what I've talked about, and you, I promise you, will maximise your chances of reaching the summit. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it useful and insightful. There are lots more Kilimanjaro videos on my channel, so please make sure you subscribe, and lots more to come, including 10 golden rules and a full video filmed on the Maximise route where I talk you through every single day on the mountain. There's also lots more adventure advice to come on my channel, and of course if you want to climb Kilimanjaro with me, with Wild Edge, there is a link below and you can come and get involved. I cannot recommend it enough. This mountain is incredible, it's a challenge, but what a trip of a lifetime. So thanks for watching, maybe I'll see you on the mountain.